now. This is Trevor and Josh Marcello, and we're here recording our Snake with Partner.
Hey, how's it going?
And so to start things off, we're going to talk about Josh's favorite topic.
Yes, indeed. All right, so first we're going to start by talking about cohesion and coupling. And our best example of this is probably our player class, which Trevor has open here. And cohesion is basically making sure that everything in an object has to do with that object. You want to keep your objects easily definable, and so you don't want a bunch of random stuff. Like for example, if you had just using our player example, if our player example had some sort of variable that does not apply to it in any way, like something right now.
Our example, we had score. Remember, we used to have score in a different class all in itself, but then we realized that that wasn't going to work out.
Yeah, and we decided to just bring it in as part of player because each player has a score, and so it just works. They kind of belong together, and so we try to keep it as cohesive as possible, making sure that player is a very clean class, and everything within it applies to it. And so our variables here are the player's name, the difficulty that the player has chosen to play on, and their current score as they go about playing. So all of these variables have to do with player. They belong to the player. And so this is a cohesive class for that reason. Next, we'll talk a little bit about coupling, and I'll have Trevor explain a little bit of that for you guys.
So coupling is just it's the ability for kind of an object to not be, for two different classes to not be like too closely intertwined, or I guess one's not heavily reliant upon another. And so for us, we had player and high score, and at first we had high score and it was very reliant upon multiple different classes, and now we're able to just, actually I'll go ahead and pull it up. And so now for high score in one of our functions, we're able to, after we go through the Java bean stuff, like if we want to add something to high score, before we had to pass in multiple different variables from different classes, and now we're able to simply pass in player, and it has all the information that it needs. And so now it's not heavily dependent upon multiple different classes for its function.
And I think this is something that object-oriented programming really helps with, is coupling. Because for example here, our player has difficulty score and their name. And before we had to pass all three of those in, now we just pass in the player object. So in procedural programming, you don't really have any other option other than to pass in all three variables. But here, all of those variables belong to one object. So we can just pass in the object, and it's much cleaner and makes the code a little bit more reusable. And it's just a very nice feature of object-oriented programming that's helping us keep things cohesive and keep our coupling loose.
All right, perfect. And so the next thing we're going to talk about was in Snake with Partner, correct? And I think it was talking about...
well, actually, right here in Player, we're going to discuss Java beans.
Oh, that's right. We're going to talk about that. So Java beans is, instead of working with the variable specifically, you still work with it, but it uses functions to retrieve it and then also functions to set it. And this helps just kind of to prevent unnecessary or unwanted changes, basically bugs in the program, from coming up. And so for all of these variables that we use throughout the program, we have getters and setters, and so that's one of the key things with Java beans is getters and setters.
Yeah. Java beans are really nice, again, because they just kind of keep everything under control, and it makes the object easily transferable. So here, keeping players with Java bean is nice because we can control how the player's score increases and decreases. For example, because we have the setter of set score, and when the player picks up a piece of like a food item in our snake game, for example, we can just call that set score function, and in that set source function, if we wanted to, we could build it right into that setter, so that according to the difficulty, it could be plus 100, plus 200, plus 300, or however we want to increment that score. It can be controlled right here in this class, even though another class will be telling it to increase the score when something is added on. So again, it just keeps the function or the object more cohesive, and it keeps control of the player's score within the player class.
All right, perfect.
Next is static variables and class instances.
Okay, so two static variables that we created was scanner, and this is something that the whole class did. So instead of creating a new scanner in every class to get input and also to output it to the console for right now, we just created one instance of it, and this helps prevent from many instances and a lot of overhead from the program from happening. And another one that we did is we have a random generator, and this is actually used in the food class, but I went ahead and made it static because we weren't sure if there was another place in which we would want to generate a random number, because we might add more to our game, and so instead of having to go in and change that, we just went ahead and started it off as a static.
And even if we did use it somewhere else, we wouldn't need more than one random number generator stored in the machine's memory, because it can just keep creating random numbers wherever we ask it to do it.
Yeah, now we can just pull it anywhere and do
it. Exactly. So next we'll be talking about nested classes. And a good example of this is what we've done with our menu views. Here's an example of play menu view. And we realized that the play menu control is only going to be used by play menu view. So we went ahead and just put the play menu control class within the play menu view class. So you see, it's not only within the same file, but it's within the curly braces of play menu view. So, and we've changed it. It's not a public class anymore. It's private. So what this does basically is this class, just like any other variable or function within play menu view, is only accessible by play menu view. And it's basically, anytime play menu view is created, we also, I believe, actually I'm not 100% sure on this, if you create an instance of play menu view, an instance of play menu control is also created. Trevor, do you know if I'm right on that?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you for sure, but like you were saying,
it's very convenient still. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, it makes sense that play menu view would be nested in here. So that way, our play menu control is nested into view. So you're not trying to call it anywhere else because it's only going to be used by play menu view class itself. So.
Great.
All right, so this leads us into our super class. So just kind of for our generic thing, we had multiple menu items, and so a lot of them had kind of the same functionality, and so we created a display menu function that actually has the code right here. And so each of our other, like our play menu view, it uses it, but all it does is it uses the, right here, it just uses its own personal menu items within it, and so it can display them. So the superclass is nice because it keeps the same function names throughout all of our menus, and performs the same function as well. So if we ever need to change our display, we could just come into here and it would apply to all of our other menus.
This is really nice because it helps us reuse code. And so that we don't have to create this, like the display menu function. We don't have to rewrite that code over and over and over again when it's the exact same thing. We can just keep it in our superclass, and every subclass of menu instantly has access to that function. And so it's very nice because you can just keep things more organized, and it can also help keep your classes a little bit more, a little smaller, more manageable as well. In the fact that if you have some obscure functionality, or it'd be better instead of having to have all of the functions for all of our menus in one class. We can create different classes, but they don't have to have all the same code. We can keep that in the menu and then just put the unique code in each of the subclasses. Keeps things cleaner, more organized, and more compact.
Yeah, perfect. And then I think we're also going to talk about polymorphism as well, right?
Yeah. And polymorphism is kind of like inheritance in the fact that the superclass has declared a function. You can see down at the bottom where it's declared get input, and go ahead and the overrides there. That's from using it from what do you call that, an interface, but we'll get to that. But so we have get input here, which is just a bare function. There's no functionality in it, except for in the subclasses, we actually create the functionality. So here in Play Menu View is where we actually put the code into the function. So this is nice because you can even have one function that does different things in different classes. That's the power of polymorphism, which you have poly, which is multiple, and morphism, which is change. So you can use the same thing in multiple places, and they can do different things. It's very, very convenient for just user readability when we're writing the code, and just helps manage memory and everything better as well.
Yeah, perfect. And this is, what's this the next thing we're going to talk about is
Interfaces.
our interface. So interface, from what we can tell, is it's the name of a specific function that we want to run in multiple different areas. And so for us, we have get input, and the nice thing with this is, yeah, superclasses kind of have a similar function in that their subclasses inherit their functions, but for what we did, we have